Hey everybody, welcome to the third module. So I promised you when we were in class that we would not be talking about plan B, C, D, E, and F for some of you guys for pretty much the rest of the semester, and that this was going to be the week that we were going to finally kick off some of our actual kinesiology learning stuff, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So today, today we're really going to be focused on what is fitness, what are kind of the main components of fitness, as well as how do we determine whether or not someone can actually begin an exercise program. So we're going to kind of do like a risk-reward evaluation, if you will. And there's also on the D2L page a sheet. It's a couple of page PDF document for you guys. It's called a physical activity readiness questionnaire, PAR-Q. So I want you guys to take a look at that after you watch these lectures, kind of see why they make the decisions that they make. And yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to be covering this week. So what is fitness? What is health? Essentially, health is it's almost like misnomered when it relates with fitness. There's more than just physical fitness when it comes to health, right? You can be extremely physically fit, but still be extremely unhealthy of an individual. It's definitely possible. Fitness is really more a readiness type criterion. It is more, are you ready to take on this specific challenge? Are you ready to lift 315 pounds on a bench press, right? Like with the iconic 315. Are you ready to squat 405? Are you ready to run a mile? Are you physically and mentally prepared for that? And fitness includes multiple different things, right? Like there is not just the physical aspect of fitness. You could be an incredibly fit individual, but have really terrible mental fitness and mental health, and you're going to struggle in order to be ready for things, right? Like you've seen this before in individuals that psych themselves out. It's a problem with things like individuals like pitchers and single sport athletes, tennis, that type of stuff. What is physical fitness? Since we are getting into kinesiology, I'm not going to read through this entire definition for you. Essentially, it is the ability of an individual to actively carry out activities of daily living and also emergency situations. So what I mean by that is, can you vacuum? Can you walk up and down the stairs in Swiffer? Are you able to pick up your newborn child and hold them for extended periods of time? And also, if a tiger comes running through the door, I'm looking that way because there's a door right there for me. If a tiger comes running through the door, are you able to respond to that scenario? Are you able to either punch it and jump over it, or are you able to run and get away? Right? I started to look that way because I have a window, and then I thought, well, that's a second floor. I'm probably not jumping 20-something feet down, but I might. So what is exercise? If we've talked about some of this, what's the difference between physical activity and exercise? Why does it matter? Well, physical activity is really not going to be a planned strategy. Generally, it's not going to be a planned strategy. It's more of going out for a walk, walking or climbing stairs, mowing the lawn, vacuuming vigorously can also be considered. Pushing your child in a stroller. That tends to be more along the line of physical activity, whereas exercise is a predetermined plan. It is actually a purposeful dedication to a movement pattern or a movement specifically to get better at it, to improve your physical fitness and improve your health. There is numerous benefits to physical activity. I know that I probably don't need to sit here and read through every single one of these bullets for you guys, so I'm not going to. Think about it. It's going to improve your risk of premature mortality and morbidity, right? So it's going to extend your lifespan, or theoretically extend your lifespan by being healthy and more fit. It's going to make and improve the way that you look. If you're physically fit, if you're eating the right way, you're not going to necessarily suffer from obesity unless there is more going on than just physical activity and diet. There could be hormonal issues going on as well. It improves your ability to complete activities of daily living while maintaining a relative level of freshness, if you will. If you go and vacuum an entire house and then you're completely wrecked for the rest of the day, getting more physically fit might actually improve your ability to do more throughout the day. It allows you to meet emergency situations on a more frequent basis. In emergency situations, doesn't just have to be a tiger running through that door. Again, I'm pointing because there is a door right there. I don't have a tiger, but I have a super fat cat, if you remember, and I have a 30-pound dog. So I'm not going to get attacked by anything that I can't kick in the face and run away. They're really, like, the ability to respond to emergencies does not just mean a physical threat. It could be an emotional threat. It could be stress. It could be all these different situations in the way in which you respond to that. So really, there's two kind of primary aspects of fitness, right? There's health-related physical fitness and there's skill-related physical fitness. Health-related, clearly, is going to be dedicated towards your health, whereas skill-related, that's more sports performance and activities that are very nuanced in their manners. So think running or jogging a 5K, being able to sustain a specific work rate for an extended period of time versus being able to complete a diving header on a keeper, or if you're into something like biathlon, being able to get your heart rate really high up and then control your breathing, control your heart rate, get everything back down, and make precision shots at distance. So it really is an interweaving of these two different health and skill-related fitness styles. When we're thinking health-related fitness, there should be a couple of terms that come to mind. So you should be thinking cardiovascular fitness. So this is what type of shape is your heart and your respiratory systems in. So that is, how well does your body respond to changes in exercise intensity? How does your body respond to prolonged endurance bouts of exercise? Is your heart able to handle it? Is your breathing capacity able to handle prolonged work rates? Strength, and that's going to be I don't know why I did it like that. Strength is the amount of force that an individual muscle can produce. You can also combine this through, and you can say that strength is really the relative amount of force that's able to be produced, or the absolute amount of force that's being able to be produced by an individual. So in life, a lot of times in health and in skill-based sports, stronger is usually better. So strength usually punishes, right? Strength is a good thing to have. If you're able to be stronger, you're able to work at higher levels that are still considered submaximal. And that's a little bit goofy to think about. But if you can squat 400 pounds and you walk up a set of stairs and you weigh what the average individual weighs, let's say 150 pounds. Each time you're taking a step, you're doing a mini squat, but you're doing a mini squat with a load that is significantly less than your total force capacity. However, if you squat 200 pounds as a max and you walk upstairs weighing 150 pounds, that ratio is not quite as big, right? So you're doing close to a maximal single leg squat every single time you take a step. So you're going to become fatigued at a faster rate. So it's super important to try to improve your strength. That way your relative activities of daily living are able to be completed at a lower level of intensity, if you will. Muscular endurance is the ability of your muscles to repeatedly contract without fatiguing. This could be a great example of this is push-up tests, sit-up tests, that type of stuff. Flexibility is the ability to move your joints all the way through a range of motion. And then body fatness or body composition is the relative percentage of fat to non-fat mass within your body. So cardiovascular fitness, let's dive a little bit deeper into this since we're kind of blowing through this stuff a bit. So it is more specifically defined as the body's ability to take in and use oxygen to produce energy. As you guys get into classes like 4450, which is exercise physiology, or even 3305, which is sports nutrition, you'll see that this ability to bring in and use oxygen is super important and is actually an obligate need for the human body. If you do not have a strong cardiovascular fitness to a certain level, you will not survive. You will die. These activities are generally the ones that make you breathe hard and increase your heart rate. So think riding bikes, running, walking on treadmills, jumping jacks, that type of stuff. These are all cardiovascular fitness-based activities. A list there is on the bottom for you as well. Muscular endurance. So think similar to the previous slide, but a little bit different. This is more of the total endurance of your muscles. So this is more like a push-up test or repeated weightlifting bouts or the chin-up test that you used to have to do in elementary school, right? So this is done specifically for injury prevention, body composition, and self-image based things. Flexibility is more specifically defined as the ability to move joints through a full range of motion. So think sit and reach based tests. This is also going to be where you're doing your warm up and your cool down. Great examples of this is, imagine if you're doing a bicep contraction, right? Imagine you're doing a curl of a sort and you can't get your arm all the way up because of flexibility issues. Are you going to be able to contract that muscle all the way through the range of motion? No, you're probably not. Same thing with a knee or a hip. And if you can't move completely through a range of motion, you can't strengthen all the way through a range of motion, it puts you at risk for future injuries or more immediate injuries as well. Body composition, this is the amount of fat tissue that your body has. So it's how fat are you essentially, or how much muscle do you have? How much bone do you have? You can really calculate this on numerous different mechanisms. The more simple way is to do like bioelectric impedance, which I can go more in depth on in the future. You can do things like DEXAs, you can do things like hydrostatic weighing. These are all examples of tests that you'd be performing in your exercise testing and prescription class that you would take later on in the KINS field. So your skill-related physical fitness, this is really going to depend on what sport you're playing and what sport or skill you're trying to execute. Whether it's some form of water sports or it's playing basketball, these are going to each require a very specific set of skills, like Liam Neeson, right? Skaters may have good agility, but not possess great power. It's probably not a great example because they usually have both. But it'd be a great example would be a marathon runner. They are fantastic at their skill. They are amazing at their skill and their ability to move in a sagittal plane motion for prolonged periods of time. That means front and back. So they're able to run for prolonged periods of time. If you put them in a tennis match, they're probably going to be fit enough to play for most of it, but the hand-eye coordination is not going to be able to be there. The frontal plane movement, the agility, are probably items of skill-related physical fitness that they're not going to have. Does that make sense? So you can have good health-related physical fitness. I was trying to click back to show you guys all this stuff, but it's too many slides back. Just because you have good health-related physical fitness doesn't mean you're going to have great skill-related fitness or skilled abilities. And just because you have great skilled abilities doesn't mean that it's going to translate into the health-related physical fitness as well. So let's talk about some of these skill-related attributes. Agility is one. It's a common one. It's commonly expressed, and it's the ability to rapidly change position of the body and to control the body's movement when you do such. So this is 5-10-5. This is QB drill, or the QB drill. This is suicides. This is skating and figure skating and diving and soccer or rugby or Gaelic football, right? These are the movements that you're commonly associated with. Barry Sanders, as he was breaking through tackles, is a great example of agility. So it's your ability to rapidly move your body in the three-dimensional space and control it. Balance is the ability to maintain a posture while standing still or dynamic in movement. So this could be like handstand walks. This could be the ability to maintain a perfect posture as you're surfing, or maintain an upright position as you're surfing, or figure skating, maintain an upright posture. This is where your kinesthetic awareness really starts coming in, and it's your ability to maintain a posture without compromising joint stability, joint mobility, or really your potential health at that immediate time, if you will. Power is where we really start getting into some of my personal favorite type things. This is where you essentially line up force production capabilities or strength and speed components of things. So power is a measure that combines force and acceleration. Mass times acceleration is power, I think. It's the ability to rapidly produce force in a controlled manner at a high level of acceleration. So think Olympic weightlifting. Think about how fast the movement of a snatch is. Think about how powerful a wide receiver diving for a catch is, or how powerful Apollo Ono was in skating. It's a combination of strength and speed, and that's where you kind of start getting into some of the holy grails of a lot of sports. Reaction time is one of the coolest things ever, I personally think, right? So this is the amount of time it basically takes to receive a sensory input from your system, from your body in some way, shape, or form, send that signal all the way to your brain, have your brain interpret that signal, turn around and spit it back out to your muscles and have your muscles react. It's a lot of stuff going on, right? Like if you think about that, that's a lot of different processes that have to occur, and they occur like that, right? They're rapid. They're immediately fast. But have you ever been working out with someone or training with someone or hanging out with someone that's just got cat-like reflexes? That's what their reaction time is. They've got a very fast sensory input and output. This is parrying and fencing. This is martial arts and combat-based sports. Tennis, ping pong, getting off of the starting block is a huge reaction time thing. This is also the ability of quarterbacks to visually identify and make decisions in reaction time. So speed, right? Power has a speed component, but power is not speed necessarily. Speed is the ability to perform a movement or cover a distance in a very short amount of time. Think 100-meter dash. Think how fast someone can get up on a vertical, or how fast you can throw a ball. Each one of these aspects is a speed-based performance because it has a rapid movement occurring in a very short time frame. When it comes to how to be healthy for life, what's one of the best ways that you can start off? What's one of the first things that you would recommend someone do if you want them to stay healthy for their entire lifespan? Physical activity, right? Is there a need to specialize and move into something like sport? Not necessarily. There's not really an obligate need to do a high skill based sport in order to get physical activity. Physical activity for some individuals could be going out for a small walk or pushing their child in a stroller. It could honestly be vacuuming vigorously. Things like that are activities to get the heart rate up, to get you breathing a little bit harder. It's a great place to really start with Lifetime Fitness, which is really funny because now it's a brand of gyms, right? Getting fit, taking that next leap, taking the movement from physical activity where it's relatively unplanned activities of daily living to a planned, dedicated exercise regimen, right? Remember, exercise is the next step up really in physical activity because it comes with a plan. It comes with a specific set of timelines that you're purposely putting onto yourself or putting onto the movements. Next is a self-assessment. How do you know if you're getting better or you're getting worse? You have to assess. You have to do a front-end assessment and a back-end assessment and continually reassess and repeat and reassess and pivot and reassess and pivot. Just like you need to have a plan A, B, C, D, E, and F for some of us, you need to have a plan A through F for physical activity. I lied to you when I told you I wasn't going to bring up your plans A through F again. It's going to probably happen every single lecture now. And then it's really just maintaining that activity and that exercise level. It's that simple. Initiate the activity, turn it into something a little bit more purposeful, assess, evaluate, repeat, right? Rinse, wash, and repeat. It's that simple when it comes to Lifetime Fitness and Lifetime Health. So who is able to exercise? Who is able to make the jump from physical activity to more exercise-based events? Who is actually able to move and move and groove, if you will? one of the first things that we need to talk about before we really go into physical activity readiness is, how do you stratify someone's risk, right? How do you determine if an individual is high risk or low risk? And that's super important for this field. And you'll see that there's like classes dedicated to that. And every single one of your personal trainer certifications, if you go through them, you'll probably also go through this. But in order to talk about risk, we also have to talk about what's the worst case scenario. What's the disease that institutes the risk? For most people, it's going to be cardiovascular disease or heart disease, right? It's going to be a problem with their heart. So heart disease is kind of a colloquial term. It refers to a lot of different types of pathologies. It refers to a lot of potential diseases. One of the most common ones is going to be coronary artery disease. We can talk about that more later as we go into some more physiology and anatomy-based stuff. But really, coronary artery disease is going to control the rate at which blood flows through the body and the degree of success with which the blood flows through the body. As you guys probably know, blood is one of the most important things that our body has. It carries all the good stuff. It carries oxygen, carries sugar, carries fats, it carries all the needed things that our body needs to survive in the blood. So if we restrict the blood, we gotta have bad stuff happen, right? Like it's pretty simple. So if you have decreased blood flow, you're thinking heart attack. How many of you guys know people that have had heart attacks? A lot of times it's due to coronary artery disease. Stroke, high blood pressure, hypertension, same thing. Those are all can be driven by coronary artery disease or heart disease. Essentially what coronary artery disease is plaque that's built up on the inside of the arteries inside of the body. So plaque is cholesterol and other substances that really, a great way to think of this is, you know how you get that crusty crap around the rim of a toothpaste, like squirter, I don't know, a toothpaste tube, I guess is what it's technically called. And if you don't clean it off all the time, then it's not like a nice even flow of toothpaste out. That's exactly what coronary artery disease is, right? It's that buildup of a non-moving substance, essentially, that narrows the ability of blood to get through. So that's called atherosclerosis, or it's the development of sclerotic regions and sclerotic lesions, lesions, within the arteries. And that's what atherosclerosis means. One of the major risk factors is diabetes. And diabetes is one of these things that we're super worried about the pandemic that's going on right now with COVID. There's been a pandemic of diabetes going on for a long, long time, and it hasn't received the notoriety that COVID has, right? If you look at that last bullet point, greater than 50% of Americans have at least pre-diabetes, if not frank diabetes. That's an alarming thing because it's the number one risk factor for coronary artery disease or heart disease, right? It's crazy. It's crazy to think about that. Essentially what diabetes is it's the inability to handle carbohydrates in the body. It's the inability to handle sugar in circulation of the body. So if you have a dysregulated ability to handle sugar, you're going to have a lot of really bad stuff happen inside of the body. Cigarette smoking, luckily this has been on the decline for a while, but cigarette smoking, specifically the chemicals inside of the cigarette smoke, can really do a lot of damage and cause a lot of inflammation inside the body. And that drives, inflammation really is what drives some of the coronary artery disease. So if you think about the tube of toothpaste reference again, you can see on the left-hand side, you've got like a nice even flow of blood coming through here. However, on the right-hand side, you have the tube of toothpaste that's got some crusties around it, right? And that's what's going on here. So you can actually see that there's a blocking or an occluding or a restriction of the ability of blood to get through. Because you can see that hole is about halved, right? So if you restrict the amount of blood that can get through, you restrict the amount of blood that can go to the heart, restrict the amount of blood that can carry oxygen, and it's not a good situation. It causes significant issues inside of the body when blood can't be received. So if we know that exercise is good, and we know that heart condition's bad, and we know that there is several other types of pathologies like diabetes that can limit our ability to exercise or that are significant downstream consequences of physical inactivity, how do we identify individuals that might already be at risk of having those diseases before they even start exercising? Right? And that's what we're going to talk about next. But essentially, if you try to get an individual that has a pre-existing condition to exercise, you might actually exacerbate that condition. So rather than making them healthier, you might make them worse off. You could literally kill the individual if they are not able to handle exercise at that point in their life. So the reason that we go through pre-participation health screenings is to make sure that you're not going to kill someone, or you're not going to put someone at an increased risk of trauma, if you will. In general, American College of Sports Medicine, one of the groups that we've talked about before, recommends that exercise is safe for most everybody and has many health or fitness benefits, right? The key statement in there is that it is safe for most people who may benefit from it. But you can also have a little asterisk on there that shows that that does not say everybody will benefit. And that means that some people will not benefit, and it might actually put them at an increased risk. And that's coming from the American College of Sports Medicine, or one of the number one exercise groups. Next bullet point, cardiovascular risks associated with exercise lessen as individuals become more active or more fit. So what that is saying is that if you are extremely unfit, the risk is extremely high. But as you become more fit, the risk decreases. So if you have an extremely unfit individual, you need to pay attention to what's going to happen if you start to exercise them, because it could be a high risk scenario. In that third bullet point, while exercise related events or cardiovascular events are typically rare, they can be exacerbated, and they can be, the rate at which they occur can be increased based upon the risk status of the individual. So here's what some of the risk factors are. Actually, these are all of the risk factors. I don't know why I said some of as reported by ACSM. So there's two different things I want you guys to take away from this. On this slide, we're going to talk about positive risk factors. On the next slide, we're going to talk about negative risk factors. What positive risk factors are is it means that it contributes to the problem of or exacerbates the problem of potential disease, potential risk, and potential negative downstream effects, right? One, age. As we get older, we get less fit, and our exercise risk, the risk of exercise exacerbating problems, grows. For men, that's 45 years old, and women, that's 55 years old. So that really, that's already, for a lot of people's parents, they're already an increased risk just because of age. Family history. If you have individuals that are in your immediate family that have had a heart attack, it increases your risk of a heart attack itself. Cigarette smoking. Cigarette's bad. We know that. Don't smoke. Sedentary lifestyle. So if they don't get physical activity on a regular, they're not completing somewhat physically arduous, quote unquote, activities of daily living, then that's also a risk factor. Obesity. So individuals that are overweight might be at risk of negative side effects of exercise. That could be joint-based, that could be cardiovascular-based, etc. Hypertension or high blood pressure. Dyslipidemia, that means that the fats that circulate inside of their blood are not regulated correctly, and that could put them at risk for cardiovascular-based events. And then that last one is prediabetes, diabetes status. So the blood sugar that's circulating inside of the blood of an individual might put them at risk as well. So that means each one of these, if you have any one of these, it's a positive risk factor. So it means that it contributes to the likelihood of something bad happening when you're exercising or when a patient of yours is exercising. There is a negative risk factor. And that is important. A negative risk factor means that it takes away a positive risk factor, right? So a negative risk factor is HDL cholesterol. And this is HDL stands for high density lipoprotein. You don't need to know that. Just know that HDL, H, think happy. This is that good cholesterol people talk about. When HDL levels get above a certain threshold, here 60, it's going to negate a positive risk factor. So that means if you're 46 years old with a family history of heart disease, according to your HDL is above 60, then that means you actually only have one risk factor because we're negating one of those two risk factors. Does that make sense? So we know what risk factors are. We know that if you obstruct blood flow or you kind of cause issues in a human that's trying to do physical activity or exercise, you could have negative side effects, negative downstream effects. How do we recognize that? How do we identify what's going on? One hallmark symptom is going to be chest pain, right? That's one of the hallmark symptoms of a heart attack. The problem is that not everyone feels chest pain when they have heart attacks. It could be left arm numbness. It could be overwhelming pressure and shortness of breath. So shortness of breath, SOB, is how it's typically abbreviated, and it's often associated with dyspnea. Dyspnea and shortness of breath are a kind of like a lack of comfort with your breathing rate and your ability to breathe in oxygen, whether you're at rest or you're during activity. Dizziness or fainting, if you have incomplete blood flow to the brain, you can fall out. You can have fainting that occurs. You can have swelling because you have inability to move fluid throughout the body because you have occlusions throughout the body, if that makes sense. Irregular heartbeats are one. That's why high-risk individuals or individuals that have had heart attacks previously typically go through cardiac rehab, and they're hooked up to EKGs, and the electrical signaling of their heart is actually being monitored the entire time they're exercising because it's such a strong corollary to outcomes. Intermittent claudication. I don't know anyone that's ever had this personally, so I can't, and I don't really want to say what the occurrence rate of it is because I don't know off the top of my head. Essentially, it's like a extreme leg pain that occurs during exercise, and it's due to a lack of blood flow. So think swelling and edema you can get because of a lack of flow of fluid. Intermittent claudication is almost like you're obstructing blood flow and obstructing oxygen from getting to an area, so it almost feels like your body is dying, is essentially how it's been described to me. And that makes sense because you're blocking all the good stuff from getting to the muscle, right? There's numerous causes of each one of these diseases. So cardiovascular disease largely relates to problems with the heart. Pulmonary disease largely relates to problems with the lungs. And then metabolic diseases relates to problem with the energy systems throughout the body. So that's the ability to process carbohydrates and handle carbohydrates, which would be diabetes. The ability to, the struggle to handle fats inside of the blood, and that's dyslipidemia. Each one of these has kind of its own nuanced approach to it. Physician's clearance. If there are symptoms and there are known negatives, or there are known positive risk factors, you need to get physician's clearance before an individual begins working out. And if you are ever worried or you are ever questioning it, always make sure you get physician's clearance first. Okay. Awesome. So that's it for this week. What I really want you guys to do is go on to D2L, pull the physical activity readiness questionnaire, and see what or how similar the physical activity readiness questionnaire is to some of these ACSM guidelines and what some of the positive and negative risk factors are and how those questions of the physical readiness questionnaire are designed to really get the individual to answer how high of risk they are without sitting there and asking them, are you a high risk individual? Right? Sound good? Cool. We will chat further next week.